Today we are going to look at ethical hacking. Nitakuwa na explain what ethical hacking is. Tutakuwa tunaangalia the importance of ethical hacking. Tutakuwa tunaangalia the 5 phases of ethical hacking, and we are also going to break down each phase tuweze kuexplain nini itakuwa inaendelea in that phase. So by the end of this lesson utakuwa na a brief overview ama a very good solid foundation of what ethical hacking is. So ethical hacking unaweza fikiria tu like the offensive side of cyber security. In that the keyword here is ethical. Ethical inamaanisha permission. So we are going to learn what ethical hacking is all about. So ethical hacking is all about protecting systems by thinking like the hackers. Vile tunapendanga kusema, use a thief to catch a thief. So we are going to discover how ethical hackers use attacker techniques to defend organizations against evolving cyber threats. So we are going to ask the first question, what is ethical hacking? So I'm sure tumesikia about ethical hacking, but ile word yenye tumesikia sana ni hacking. And ukisikia mtu yote mwenye nje, ukiambia mtu yote about hacking pale nje, they always think about crime. Mtu anajaribu ku break into computer systems bila ruhusa, anaiba information ama ana take over machines. So hacking itself is a crime. Even in Kenya, we have cyber crime laws even in Kenya. So hii Kenya tutakuwa tunafanya hapa is what we call ethical hacking. And ethical hacking is the authorized practice of probing systems to find security weaknesses before malicious hackers do. So tutakuwa tunaomba ruhusa ndio tuweze kuattack a system using the techniques that the malicious hacker use, na tutakuwa tunafanya hivyo ndo tuweze kupata security weaknesses ama vulnerabilities, ndo tuweze kuzifix kabla wale malicious hackers wapate hiyo nafasi ya kufanya hivyo. So the keyword here is ethical. Ethical inamaanisha you are doing something within the boundary of ethics. You have permission to do something. So ethical hacking is also known as white hat hacking. I'm sure mshaisikia word labda. So we have 3 types of hackers: white hat, black hats, and grey hats. White hats are the good guys, black hats are the bad guys, and grey hats wako somewhere in between. So ethical hacking sometimes pia unaweza sikia mtu anasema white hat hacking. So white hat hacking or ethical hacking itakuwa inasaidia organization to strengthen defenses and prevent cyber attacks. So ethical hacking is all about prevention, and tunasemanga nini most of the time, prevention is better than cure. So ethical hackers watakuwa na follow strict legal guidelines and always have explicit permission to test systems. That is why inaitwa ethical hacking. Ethical as in we are going to ask for permission first before attempting to do anything on that system, before scanning that system, before trying to exploit vulnerabilities, before trying to do anything on that system, tutakuwa tunaomba ruhusa kwanza. So ethical hackers, they work to identify vulnerabilities, document findings, and recommend security improvements. So ethical hackers watakuwa nasaidia discover ama find out these security vulnerabilities ama security weaknesses, and then after wame discover these vulnerabilities watakuwa na document, then watakuwa na recommend security improvement. So ethical hacking is all about protection and improving the security of computer systems and computer networks. So another very important question is, why does ethical hacking matter? Why should we even learn ethical hacking in the first place? Now, before I start explaining all that, nataka nikupate some statistics so that we can get a picture of how ethical hacking is important. So the first thing is, ukiangalia the first slide hapa on our slide, utaona we have a figure here, 10.5 trillion. And that is the projected damage that was caused in 2025 alone by cybercrime. Now, if you think about that number, 10.5 trillion is a lot of money. Hii ni pesa yenye labda inaweza run the Kenyan government for the next even 30 years. So 10.5 trillion, if you put it in comparison na the world economy, is still a huge figure. And if you convert it into Kenya shillings, it's a huge sum of money that we're talking about. And just imagine, this is the amount of damage in financial cost that cybercrime ilileta in this world in 2025 alone. So we are still yet to hear about 2026, but I'm sure bado itakuwa very, very high. Actually, I'm sure 2026 itakuwa much worse because of everything about AI sahi, AI agents and all that. So cybercrime is going to cost the world economy a lot of money. Now Kenya, we are not spared. Kenya is actually one of the most targeted countries by cybercrime in Africa. I hope you know that. So that is one of the reasons why we need ethical hacking. So if we are able to discover these vulnerabilities and security weaknesses before these hackers get the chance to do that, tutakuwa tuna save a lot of money. Now, we also have another number here, 68%, and this is the breach prevention. Organizations using ethical hacking to reduce breach risk. So this is a very small number, 68%. So inakuonesha kwamba a lot of organizations, businesses and even governments pale nje, they don't take cyber security seriously. Actually, instead of 68%, we should have something like even labda 90 or ikishuka sana 85 or 80%. So we are still yet to see cybersecurity being taken seriously, and we are going to see it being a very, very important thing in the years to come. So we need ethical hacking for us to be able to protect businesses, to protect computer networks, financial data, and the security of even our country. The other thing is hackers don't sleep, wanakwanga active 24/7. So wakati wewe uko pale kwa kampuni yenu labda ama in your business, wakati unaenda kulala usiku, hackers don't go to sleep. Most of them wanakwanga very active 24/7. So uta expect kwamba this hacker is going to try and find vulnerabilities in your system 24/7, ikue usiku ikue mchana. So kitu ingine unafaa kujua, cyber attacks zitakuwa zina happen around the clock every time worldwide. So nataka kuonesha kitu hapa. Let's come to this website inaitwa threat map. So I want to show you just how important ethical hacking is and how it's so important. So tukikuja kwa hii website inaitwa threatmap.checkpoint.com. So hii website itakuwa inatuonesha all the attacks that are going on around the world currently. This is just to show you that attacks zitakuwa zina happen 24/7. Like right now, we are seeing in real time. And today is on Thursday, 5 February 2026. And you can see that we already have, as of today, we have almost 5 million attacks that have occurred just today. So we are currently seeing the attacks that are taking place right now. We are actually seeing them in real time. So this just shows you that no one is safe, no system is safe, no network is safe, and no government is safe from cybercrime. This is why we need ethical hacking. Ethical hacking matters a lot, and this is why we are going to study it as part of cybersecurity, though at least to understand how to perform basic ethical hacking, also called white hat hacking, also called penetration testing. Now let's look at the 5 stages of ethical hacking. So wakati tutakuwa tuna perform ethical hacking ama white hat hacking ama penetration testing, tutakuwa tunapitia 5 stages for us to be able to take over a system. So each stage is going to build methodically on the previous one to simulate a real world cyber attack with precision and thoroughness. So kitu moja unafaa kujua before we start doing any of this is going to be done in a legal environment because it's ethical. We are going to practice this on our own systems in a later lesson. So hata kama wakati tutakuwa pale nje, it's always a wise decision to do this on your own systems. Never do this on systems or networks that you don't have permission to. So the first stage of ethical hacking is recon ama reconnaissance. So this is where we try to gather as much information as possible about the target. Tutakuwa tunatumia tools kama Nmap, tutakuwa tunatumia vitu kama Google search engines and all that. So we are trying to discover all the information that is available about that target. So we're also going to look at each and every one of these phases one by one. So the next stage is scanning, and this is where we try to identify the security weaknesses ama what we call vulnerabilities in those systems. So tutakuwa tunaangalia if there's any system running outdated software, like for example, a computer running Windows XP ama Windows 7, those are outdated operating systems. So these are the kind of information that we are going to look out for when we try to scan a system. After we scan a system, we now try to gain access or we try to exploit that system. So we are going to use the weaknesses that we have found in stage 2 scanning to be able to gain access to that system. You can think of it like this. Ni kama sasa labda tumezunguka ka bungalow ama ka mansion, and then we are looking at all the possible ways we can break in into that system and gain access. The fourth stage is maintaining access, and this is where we try to establish what we call persistence. So persistence basically inamaanisha tukibreaking into that computer ama tukigain access into that system ama computer, hiyo computer hata baadaye labda ikizimwa, ikiwakishwa baadaye, we are still able to gain access to that system because tulikuwa maintain that persistence. And I'm going to explain to you how we are going to maintain that persistence. And the last stage of the ethical hacking phase, stage 5, is where we try to clear tracks. So after tumemalizana na ile system, tumefanya kenye tunataka kufanya, tumepata kenye tunataka, now we try to get out of the system. We have to make sure that we leave no traces. We are going to clear logs. We are going to delete any files that we have created. So basically, we are going to erase any sign of intrusion into that system. Now let's look at the first stage, reconnaissance, ama the information gathering phase. Now the first stage tulisema inaitwa reconnaissance. In short unaweza sema tu recon, RECON. Reconnaissance ama information gathering phase is where we try to gather as much information as possible about the target, and we are going to do this in two ways. We are going to use passive methods and active methods. So passive inamaanisha we are not going to interact directly with the target. So ni kama sasa tutakuwa tunaenda online, maybe tunajaribu kufind information about somebody without trying to contact them, so that at least wasijue we are trying to find information about them. So we are going to gather intel or intelligence without direct interaction with the target. So we are going to use things like public websites, social media, vitu kama TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all that. We are going to use search engines like Google to find information. You will be surprised at how much information is available online about people. We also have company databases, and a very good example ni kitu kama LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is like a site for professionals. Msi atakuja anakuwa na create account pale, anaweka information about him, amesomea wapi, qualifications gani ako nayo, amefanya job wapi, currently ako wapi na ako na role gani kwa hiyo kampuni maybe. So hii itakuwa inapatia a hacker a lot of information without even interacting directly with the target. The other one is active. Active is where we directly interact with the target. So we are going to probe a system using tools like Nmap, DNS queries. We are going to find networks. We are going to scan the network to map infrastructure. So tutakuwa tunajaribu ku find like live hosts. Tunataka kujua ni operating system gani ya watu wanarun, wanatumia computer gani, wanatumia which type of computers, what type of servers, manufacturers ni kina nani. So hii yote we are trying to map the attack surface. Tunataka kujua kila kitu yenye tunaweza attack ndani ya hiyo system ama hiyo network. So active recon itakuwa ina create a lot of noise. That means it's very easy for you to be detected. So if, for example, if you are scanning a system and then labda kuna intrusion detection system ama intrusion prevention system on the other side, so hiyo system ita flag ama itagundua kwamba somebody is trying to scan that system, and labda IP address yako ikipatikana, you might end up in trouble. So a real world example of recon is the devastating target breach of 2013 that began with recon. And this led to almost 40 million compromised credit cards. So in 2013 kuna kampuni inaitwa Target that was the target of a cyber attack, na a whole 40 million compromised credit cards iliachiliwa pale. You can just imagine 40 million credit cards, na hiyo information yote wakati iliachiliwa on the internet ili reach almost every criminal in the world. So just imagine watu wanaweza fanya nini with that information. Mtu anaweza enda anachukua hiyo credit card, anunue hata gari, clear loans zake, ajenge bungalow, and this can lead to real harm, damage ama real financial consequences to a person. Testing. Now stage 2 is the scanning, or where we try to map the attack surface. So hapa ndo tutakuwa tuna gather information about live host, operating systems, type of networks and all that. So this critical phase identifies live systems, open ports, running services, and exploitable vulnerabilities across the target network. So we already talked about network ports on a previous lesson. Niliwaambia ports are a logical entry for information to a computer system. So for example, kama labda tunatumia port 22 iko open SSH, we know that SSH is used for remote administration, for connecting to a remote computer. So if you're not using port 22, it's not wise to leave it open. So wakati tutakuwa tunascan a system tupate labda port 22 is open, we can try to gain access into that system using that open port. We're also going to look at running services. Tutakuwa tunaangalia kama they're running HTTP, they're running telnet, they have labda shared network and all that. And then we're also going to look at any exploitable vulnerabilities. For example, if they're running Windows 7, we're going to look at all the vulnerabilities that are contained in Windows 7. Now, we know that Windows 7 is very vulnerable. Kuna a lot of vulnerabilities zenye zimekuwa exposed in Windows 7. So hii yote itakuwa ina create what we call the attack surface. All the possible entry points yenye ule hacker anaweza tumia to gain access into that computer. So we're going to do things like port scanning, where we try to identify open ports and services. We are going to do what we call vulnerability scanning, where we try to detect security weaknesses and misconfigurations in that system. We're also going to map the network to find everything that is connected to that network, basically creating a detailed topology of that network infrastructure. So we're going to use popular tools like Nessus and OpenVerse, which are vulnerability scanners. Zitakuwa zinatusaidia ku discover ama to detect any vulnerabilities in that system. All these tools are available in Kali Linux and Parrot Linux. We also have Nmap. Nmap is a network analyzer. It's also a port scanner. Itakuwa inatusaidia ku analyze a network to find any ports that are open, any services that are running on those ports. And we're also going to use Wireshark. Wireshark is also a network protocol analyzer. Itakuwa inatusaidia kuangalia traffic yenye itakuwa ina move on that network from one device to another. We're also going to use something called the Metasploit framework, a very good tool that is available also in Kali Linux and Parrot Linux. So Metasploit framework itakuwa inatusaidia kufanya scanning, kufanya exploitation, vulnerability scanning and all that. It's like an all-in-one tool for ethical hackers and also malicious hackers. Now stage 3 is where we try to gain access into that system, or where we try to breach that system. So ethical hackers are going to exploit discovered vulnerabilities to enter that system, testing the organization's defensive capabilities under realistic attack conditions. So hapa tutakuwa sasa tumeipata zile vulnerabilities. Now we are going to use those vulnerabilities ama weaknesses to enter into a system. You can think of it like this. Let's say tumediscover kwamba kuna dirisha labda iko na weak handle, so tutajaribu kuvunja hiyo handle and then to gain access into that house of course. Ama kuna nyumba yenye iko na ama kuna mlango yenye iko na ka weak padlock, so tunaweza igonga tu na nyundo ama mawe na tuvunje hiyo padlock na tuingie into that house. So in this stage we are going to use different techniques. The first one is password cracking. We're going to try and crack those passwords using what we call brute force, dictionary attacks and credential stuffing techniques. So tutakuwa tunajaribu ku guess all the passwords zenye huyu mtu anaweza kuwa anatumia to be able to gain access to that account maybe ama to that system. We're also going to exploit software flaws. We're going to leverage what we call CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures. We are going to talk about that in a later lesson. And also what we call zero-day vulnerabilities. So nishaiongelea about zero-day vulnerabilities, and basically a zero-day is a vulnerability that has been discovered by a hacker, but mwenye ametengeneza hiyo system is not aware. Let's say for example, I'm a software developer, nimetengeneza ka software fulani na nimeachilia kwa internet watu wanatumia, and then kuna hacker pale kwa internet alidiscover a vulnerability in that software na mimi developer sina habari. That is what we call a zero day. We're also going to use the techniques like social engineering, where we try to manipulate human behavior through phishing and pretexting. And social engineering is one of the biggest ways that hackers nowadays use to gain access into a system. Because if you think about it, it's much easier to hack a person than to hack a system. So in cybersecurity tunapendaga kusema humans are and will always remain the weakest link in any security chain. So that means unaweza kuwa na all sorts of security measures, security mechanisms in place, but itakuja tu mtu mmoja akuja download ka program ama ka virus into that system, and all the security is now down. So the ultimate goal is to obtain user or administrative level access to thoroughly test systems, defenses, and document security gaps. Now, stage 4 is the stage that we try to maintain access. So we have already broken into that system, tumepata entry into that system. We are now inside that system. So what we are going to do is, ndo tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba tunaweza rudi hapo kwa hiyo system anytime, we are going to maintain access, or we are going to establish what we call persistence, so that hiyo computer hata ikizimba baadaye bado tunaweza enter that system ikiwakishwa hata baadaye. So once inside, ethical hackers ensure persistent control over the system without detection. We mirroring advanced persistent threat APT tactics used by sophisticated attackers. APT, advanced persistent threats, tuliongelea about this. So these are the type of hackers wenye most of the time are state sponsored, wameajiriwa na serikali, so they have a lot of resources, na kazi yao itakuwa ni ku try to break in into a system of another country, and wanataka waweze kukaa kwa hiyo system for like even a year, 2 years, even 5 years at a time, gathering information pole to gathering information and sending it back to their governments. So that's what we call APT. So these APTs lazima wa maintain access so that they can come back to that system anytime they want. They establish persistence. So they do this using techniques like backdoors, and these are the hidden entry points that are used for future access. We also have what we call rootkits, deep system level concealment tools. Hizi ni zile malicious software zenye zina run at the kernel level huko, so that even antivirus software hazitaweza kudetect. We also have trojans, na tuliongelea about trojans. These are type of malicious software yenye na disguise as legitimate software. So ni kama sasa labda program inasema ati ni antivirus software, but in real sense it's a spyware. So trojans are disguised malicious software that maintain connectivity to the attacker. So this stage, ama the maintaining access stage, allows deeper exploitation and comprehensive testing of system resilience against prolonged intrusions. Now the last stage, stage 5, is where we try to clear tracks or covering digital footprints. So after breaking into that system, scan, tumepata vulnerabilities, exploit, gain access, maintain ile access. Once we are done with that system, ama tumepata kenye tunataka, we no longer want access to that system, we are going to cover our tracks as we leave that system. So we are going to make sure that hakuna kitu yote itakuwa ina lead back to us, hakuna kitu yote inaonyeshana kwamba hiyo system ilikuwa imecompromisewa, ama kuna kitu yote malicious ama fishy that was going on. So we are going to do this by deleting logs, by removing system application event records. So logs, hizi logs ni basically ni kama records zenye zitakuwa zinaonyesha kenye itakuwa ina happen kwa system. So for example, logs zinaonyesha kwamba at 10:52 am a folder was created, ama something was downloaded, ama something was installed on that system. And hizi logs zitakuwa zinatumika sana sana by forensic analysts kuweza kudiscover the signs of intrusion na nini ilikuwa inafanyika on that system. We also going to uninstall any tools zenye tulikuwa tumeinstall hapo labda in the course of our intrusion. Kama kuna any tools zenye tulikuwa tunahitaji na tumeinstall on that system, we are going to uninstall them. So we are going also to remove all the testing software and payloads. We are also going to restore settings. Kama kuna vitu yote tulikuwa tumebadilisha into that system settings, nini vitu kama hizo, tutakuwa tunazirudisha to how they were previously so that isikuwe suspicious. We are also going to verify cleanup. We're going to ensure that there are no traces that remain in the system. So ethical hackers meticulously clear evidence to simulate real attacker behavior and test the organization's incident response capabilities and forensic detection systems. So ethical hackers watakuwa natumia hizi techniques zote zenye tumeangalia hapa, the 5 stages, to be able to exploit a system ndo waweze kugundua if that system is vulnerable or not. So ethical hacking is a very, very important subject or topic in cybersecurity. Ethical hacking is all about proactive defense. So tutakuwa tunajaribu ku reveal any hidden risk and vulnerabilities before malicious attackers can exploit them. So ni kama sasa umeajiri mtu akuja kuangalia ile nyumba yako mpya, ile bungalow mansion umejenga, unaambia huyu msee, nataka upitie kwa hii nyumba uangalie kama kuna any place yenye mtu anaweza vunja na aweze kuingia into that house. That is what ethical hacking is all about. So prevention is better than cure, of course. We also have strategic thinking, and this is where we try to understand attacker methodologies to build stronger, more resilient security architectures. So tukiweza kudiscover vulnerabilities, tukiweza kuscan system, after sasa tumejua kama kuna weakness, of course tutajaribu kufix that security weakness ama vulnerability, and in the long term tutakuwa tuna create a very very strong system. We also have essential protection. So a critical component of modern cybersecurity strategy in an increasingly connected world. So ethical hacking is a very very important part of cybersecurity, and hii itakuwa inasaidia kuprotect systems from malicious hackers. So ethical hacking transforms security from reactive to proactive, because of course prevention is better than cure. So this gives organizations the advantage in the endless battle against cyber threats. So tumesema hackers hawatakuwa wanalala, watakuwa active 24/7. So of course if you have a business, wewe pia and you individually, you also need to protect yourself from these hackers, because waizi pia pale nje, waizi hawalalangi. They think of all the ways that they can rob you, they can get your money, they can cause you harm. So prevention is better than cure again, and ethical hacking is a great part, a very very important part of cyber security. So at least by now umejua what ethical hacking is, umejua the importance, umejua some of the reasons why you study cyber security, the damages that are caused by cybercrime and all that. We also looked at the 5 stages of ethical hacking na tumeweza kuexplain what happens in all those 5 phases, na tumesummarize by looking at the importance of cyber security. So in a later lesson pia tutakuwa tunafanya this practically. I'm going to show you the tools that we are going to use to do scanning, to do information gathering, to do exploitation, to maintain persistence, and to cover our tracks.